Hello and welcome back to the Villa Villa podcast. I am here as always with my good friend Dan Wiseman. Dan, Aston Villa won, Wanky Wanderers won. It was, I think, by very definition, a game of two halves.
Yeah, mate, we're idiots. We are idiots.
We are.
The fan base, we are idiots. We completely forgot which club we support. It went out the window. It went out the window. We all looked at this run of 4 games and went, oh my God, that's like 12 points. I said 10, 12 points on the last podcast. Completely forgot that I'm talking about Aston Villa, of course. Yeah, that's not how this club works. That's not how this club works. This club runs, and it's in the very fiber of its being, deep rooted within its DNA, is performing well against the big teams and bottling it against the crap ones. And it happened again tonight, and I was watching it happen. And I was like, I'm so stupid. I'm such an idiot. I should have seen it coming.
Oh, mate. It's perfect. It's perfectly encapsulated, mate. But do you know what? I think there's part of it where, and this is the controversial straight off the back, off the top of the podcast. I think we can be better fans. And I think the first half
I think so
proved
too.
that. I think we have our part to play. And if this upsets you, then maybe you should take a look at yourself in the mirror because that first half was toxic as hell. The atmosphere it, and I'm not saying like don't boo or jeer or sort of you are perfectly entitled to feel frustrated and be angry at the players, especially when they're as poor as they were in the first half because they really were. It was shocking, but the second half proved it, mate. The second half they backed the lads all the way to the end. The noise was deafening. And I don't think we stopped singing Unai Emery's Clap Rhyme for a good 25 minutes at one point. It was never ending. And neither were the attacks from Villa. The momentum was absolutely massive. There's a SofaScore have got the momentum of the match. It's this thing that's kind of been implemented in sort of data and analytics over the past couple of years. Um, I'm sure it'll make it into the shorts, Dan. I'll send you a link so we can sort of whack it on screen over the bit you mentioned at the top of the podcast. But Villa absolutely had this second half. Like it, we had Wolves on strings, and Unai did what he does best and got them organised at half time. And as I said at the top of the podcast, mate, it really was a game of two halves. But I think it would be rude and disingenuous of us to not come on here and give Wolves the credit that they deserve because they came with a game plan that was executed to near perfection. They frustrated the hell out of Villa. They completely smothered us. And realistically, they did exactly what we did against Tottenham. And it almost worked, if not, but for a fantastic through ball in the air from Tyrone Mings, absolutely hoofed up the field. Danny Ings, what more do we need to say, mate? Stop the whole hunt for a striker. Take this man off the transfer list. Danny Ings is here to stay.
Yeah, man. Just my 2 cents on the fans. I sort of had this like I was going through this at halftime because obviously it was the booze like as the like obviously it's not from everyone and they weren't very long, but like there were some booze as the lads went down the tunnel, and like I was there and I was like, I feel that's harsh after the Spurs game and that the weekend they just gave us. But then, like on the other hand, I'm like, I saw Ashley Priest's tweet and he was like, some adults it's like up to £59 for a single adult's ticket tonight to go and see that game,
Yeah.
which is extortionate, absolutely extortionate for a Wednesday night game. Um, in like this at this time of year, just off the back of Christmas, where nobody's got any money, everyone's skin. We're in this cost of living crisis. Like £59. If I'd paid £59 to go and see this game, and like you buy a couple of pints in the concourse, your train fare there and back. All of a sudden, it's £100 outing to go and see the Villa, and they played like that in the first half. I'd probably feel a little bit disgruntled as well. And so I think ultimately, like that has to be taken into account in that it's not just about supporting the club anymore. Unfortunately, it's like, are you getting your value for money? And we like the fans definitely didn't in that first half. And so I do have sympathy with some people. And I think those that did pay, 60 quid or whatever to get into the North Stand or whatever, like that's got to be hard. And so I did feel for the fans in that regard. But no, absolutely fair play to Wolves, mate. That Daniel Pedence goal is so good, so good. I mean, it really put it was glorious to see Debu come out and with his golden glove and his medal and everything like that pre-game. But 12 minutes in, he's right back to where he was left off. Like it never happened, baby. Like welcome back, son. Absolutely rooted for that goal. I think ultimately, like we weren't very good in the first half. When you concede a goal like that, it's hard to be like, no, there's no real error there. It's just a very good finish from Daniel Pedence. I thought Wolves really missed him in the second half. But in the second half, I think Unai showed his class again. We made the right changes, which was a complete contrast to the Liverpool game where we waited until like the 84th minute to make the substitutes. They came really early. I thought Coutinho played well. Thought he was good. Like it wasn't like an all-time. I'm not saying like it was like an all-time classic Coutinho performance. Like far from it, but it was a good performance, and it felt like a step in the right direction. Don't you think? Like you and I spoke about his decision to stay and what a massive sort of statement that was from him. We both said it's all very well and good, but we need to translate it into performances. And it felt like he did that. And now, given the whole transfer saga with Danny Ings, I think you can say the same for him too. Like that's a big statement for him to go and get that goal. And 6 goals in his last 8 Premier League starts now for Ingsy. And so, yeah, I think those boys came on and did well. And I think it's an important transfer window for the both of them. And if they've sort of really put down the gauntlet there, then let's hope that can continue.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, I'd echo that on Philippe. I thought it was an encouraging performance, and it was good to see that sort of aggression that I don't think we've probably seen from him since he first sort of signed and threw himself into the post when he scored against Manchester United. We've not seen that. 86% pass accuracy from him today, 1 accurate long ball, won 2 of his 8 ground duels, isn't amazing, but made 2 tackles, made himself really busy, made himself available all the time, and is looking more like the Felipe Coutinho that we probably thought early doors. I have to give you Unai Emery some like the most respect for the changes that he made, mate, because I'm looking at that game. First of all, Luca Dean absolutely hooks across straight into the whole end, and he pulls him off nearly immediately and goes, "Nah, Ludwig Augustinsson, mate, you are coming on." And most people would have probably gone, "I don't really know what you're doing there, Unai." But he came on, and again, I thought Ludwig, he didn't really put a foot wrong. SofaScore gave him a rating of 7. Obviously, he played 23 minutes, won both of his ground duels,
Very nearly
drew
scored as
2
well,
fouls. Yeah, nearly scored. Has a 79% pass accuracy. Has 2 shots on target. He's a left back. Absolutely mental, mate. So I think we owe him a bit of respect. I think we really do. And I mean, if you're chasing a game, right, your first thought is probably not to get Leander Dendoncker on. He's probably more someone I would bring on to see out a game. Actually, he's quite the opposite player. Somebody who can run down the clock, who's going to be industrious, get about, commit a few professional fouls, and do the dirty work really when Boober and Dougie's legs are tired. But the triple sub that was made to get them pair on, and obviously Ingsy as well, proved to be a complete masterstroke. And not that I ever doubted Unai anyway, but the changes again, it just consolidates to me. We have an elite manager, and we have a squad that I think we'll probably be the first to admit it's not fantastic, but the players are stepping up, and I think it was a message to Luca Dean, because that cross was awful. He literally hit it straight into the whole end, like it nearly hit me in the fucking head. Like he's took him off almost immediately after that and gone, actually, we'll put Ludwig on, and what's the worst that can happen? And I mean, he nearly scores a screamer. There's a fantastic off the line clearance. Was it from
Max Kilman?
Max Kilman. I mean, he was brilliant. So was Nathan Collins. Absolute handful, that guy. But Wolves did execute a game plan very well. It's a great goal from Prudence. And I don't really know what to say. I mean, we didn't lose, mate. We didn't lose, and I think that's really important. It feels like a hard-earned point. I think Bailey, we love Leon Bailey on the Villa for the podcast. Leon Bailey, if you're ever watching, you're probably not, but you're a fantastic player. But I think there's just something with the final product. It's not quite there, and I think we saw that today. And obviously we're chasing the game in the manner that we are. I've not watched the chance back, but it was was right in front of me in the lower Holte, mate. It's a fantastic touch to initially take Sarr out of the equation completely, right? But then it was an awkward bounce because by the time he's pulled the trigger, it almost feels like he didn't have enough time to take a second touch because the recovery run was there from Sarr and the defender. And I mean, I'd be fairly confident in saying if we ran that scenario back another 9 times, he probably scores it 9 times as well. But it was an incredibly difficult chance in an incredibly high pressure moment at the end of the game. And at the end of the day, it's just unlucky, really.
Yeah, I think that perfectly encapsulates Leon Bailey, doesn't it? That moment in the great run, the fantastic touch, the balance to get around Sarr, to set yourself up and to not just miss, but he missed it really badly. And it's a really interesting one. Like I watched it for the first time and I wasn't like it's a bad miss, but I was, as you say, mate, I wasn't like appalled by it. But then when you watch it back, he just rushes it. He just rushes it. And I think he's putting a lot of pressure on himself right now because he is playing better. Let's have it right. Like his performances generally are so far improved from where we once were with Leon Bailey. And I think he knows in his head that realistically, the only way that you're going to get people to sit up and take notice that aren't in the Villa sphere are by putting up the numbers. And that's what's missing at the moment. He's getting in the right areas. He's getting the shots in. He's causing problems on the dribble. And he takes it around Sarr. And I think it's one of those where, like, if he's going to try and roll it into the back of the net, he has to take it first time. But I think he can take a touch, and it's a defender in goal against Leon Bailey 12 yards out. And so obviously there is still someone in goal, but like, you know, any self-respecting Premier League player has to fire that into the roof of the net and, you know, you win the game 2-1. He's put out a really, you know, sort of heartfelt Instagram story apologizing for it, saying he'll struggle to sleep and all this. And like, you can't help but feel bad for the guy. And like, it's nice that, like, generally, I think the consensus is around Leon that, you know, the fans are obviously going to stick behind him and everything like that. But we could have won it. I don't think, given the first half, that we necessarily deserve to. I think the big test for Unai now is making Villa a tough side to play against at home. It's only 3 wins at Villa Park this season in the league, which is really not good enough. And this is what I mean in relation to sort of to come full circle and perhaps finish on this note, mate. It's okay. It's great to go and get wins on the road. It's brilliant. But for the vast majority of fans that don't get to go to those games, you're ultimately judged, you live and die by what you do at B6. And like, you can go and beat 2-0, Spurs 2-0, but you have to come back and replicate those performances for the fans that weren't there, for the fans that do pay 59 quid or whatever it is to sit at Villa Park. And until we make Villa Park a fortress, until we make it a tough place to go, I've seen too many teams in my lifetime come to Villa Park and enjoy themselves far too much. We won't progress at this league because, you know, your home form needs to be the first tick in the box if you're going to have a good season. And it hasn't been for the Villa for like the longest time, mate.
You're spot on, mate. You're spot on. Villa are going to win more games on the road than they are at home. That's a fact. We have a part to play in that. The players obviously have a huge part to play in that. Let's make Villa Park a fortress for Stevenage. Let's make it absolutely rowdy. Why not? Before we go, mate, it'd be rude not to talk XG, wouldn't it? 0.61 for Aston Villa compared to 0.85 for Wolves. Villa should have won this game. But as you say, mate, it happens. Sometimes we have an off day. There's no need to pile on Leon. I'd back him to score that again if he gets himself in that position. And all that we can hope is that we do keep doing that, because in the first half, you know, when Watkins was on up front, the movement just wasn't quite it. I think he was really struggling with the physicality of Nathan Collins, and he was getting too drawn into that battle where I think we saw the moment that Danny came on, the positional sense was just so much better. He knew he needed to float in between the two centre halves. He knew he needed to be in front, in between of Kilman and in between of Nathan Collins, and he did that. And obviously, he creates a wonderful chance for himself, getting on the end of that Mings through ball. It's not a terrible performance. The second half, especially, it gives me plenty of courage. And I'm sure we'll be back to talk Stevenage in some capacity. Maybe it'll be a short, maybe it'll be a podcast. There will be transfers, so Dan and I will be back, but it is getting late and I need to edit this podcast and then I need to get to bed, as I'm sure you do too, Dan. So I hope everybody who is listening to this is, enjoyed tonight, and hopefully we can have a much better time come Sunday afternoon. FA Cup action at Villa Park. It's been a while. Nice freebie for the season ticket holders. As well, before we go, I've got to give a couple of shout outs to Frankie and Lee, because I forgot to after the Spurs game. So I'm sorry, guys. And Lee downloaded Spotify specifically to listen to the podcast on the dog walk, and the shout out never happened. So I'm sorry, Lee.
That's nice.
So here's the shout out now. Hopefully you listen this time. And yeah, if you guys enjoyed, hit a like, comment your thoughts below, subscribe for more, guys. Support on the channel. It's been a joke, man. Like we've done nearly 2K subs in the past month. So massive thank you to you guys. I think are we about to hit 8K? I think we're like
so
30
mate, I'm literally. I have to keep checking for we're at 7,975. So there's every chance by the time that this podcast hits the airwaves, we'll have got those 25 last followers. So yeah, if that's the case, that's crazy.
Share it, guys. Share it with your friends, your family, anyone who supports Villa, any Wolves fans as well if they're interested in this. Check us out on TikTok and Instagram, at Heart of the Heart on TikTok, at VillaPod on Instagram, and yeah, up the Villa.